So if you're in the gaming scene, then you'll know that 2017 was a landmark year, a year where gamers actually were able to make a resounding statement on how they wanted their games to be played. Or how they wanted their games to be made, if anything. Now, this year was quite critical because this was the year that EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2 was released, and that game was released as a microtransaction centric game. And the moment the community got wind that this was what was going to be released, it became a big, huge uproar to the point that the developers had to EA quickly took away a lot of those microtransactions before the game was launched because they could not take the backlash from the community. I think this is when they started to see that gamers were going to be making a stance, and this was a more vocal year. I think 2017 everybody made a huge uproar. And if you guys don't even know, there was another video game that was released even in that same season, and that was Middle-earth Shadow of War. And Middle-earth Shadow of War eventually saw that, according to the data that was collected in some sales ecosystems, it was found out that Middle-earth Shadow of War actually sold very well at launch, but eventually its sales started to taper off. I got this data from a Kotaku article that was written by Jason Schreier. I was reading through this just recently, but I do remember, and I do own a copy of the game, which is really cool. And I've never, opened a microtransaction shop, but I remember hearing the announcement that, a few months later, they were going to be taking away the microtransaction store. A lot of people were skeptical. I was like, we'll believe it when we see it. And yes, they took out the microtransactions, but, some people were able to say things, which I think were warranted that, okay, so they waited over 200 days to take out these microtransactions. Why didn't they just do it in the first place? Or why did they even feel the need to add microtransactions in the first place? And so today's industry has seen a lot of these games release microtransactions as part of their base single player aspect of the game, or even if it's a multiplayer aspect of the game. These microtransactions seem to be prevalent, and it's now being more obvious that this is actually affecting the quality of the games because the microtransactions are executed perfectly well and the games seem to be lacking in terms of content, creativity, in terms of freshness. And so players are just continually getting disenfranchised and keeping their money in their pocket. And fast forward a year later, a lot of these companies kind of learned a little bit. They made some really good quality games. You could see that they weren't emphasizing microtransactions just as much. Some companies they were pushing the limits because they didn't necessarily care. But a lot of the other companies that didn't have those games or those titles or that leverage seemed to do very well. That year, Assassin's Creed Origins was released. It was also very well accepted by the community. I don't know, or I'm not aware of any microtransactions that may have been in the game. But then you saw, 2018, come around, and many of these games that were being released were starting to introduce these microtransactions little by little to try to see if they could test the waters and, wishing that gamers may have forgotten based on 2018. And I think they eventually pushed the envelope too far because 2019 eventually started to see the financial repercussions of this. And so as far as this microtransactions, now this didn't mean that Warner Brothers Games was not going to do microtransactions. They did, even with Mortal Kombat. When they made Mortal Kombat 11, the game was super grindy in terms of how the microtransactions were set up for skins. And a lot of people had a big, huge uproar and said, this is ridiculous. And so the developers came out immediately to reward the community with a lot of microtransaction currency stuff. I think like 500 coins and all this in-game currency to go purchase whatever they wanted as a sign of goodwill. And they knew that they could not take a PR hit in that sense. And so they kind of backed away a little bit from the microtransactions. But, with these fighting games, I think skins or whatever is something that they do promote. Now, you can work to get almost every skin. I think every skin in the game and every augment and every single aspect. I don't know anything that's only sold exclusively so far, being a Mortal Kombat 11 player, but I do know that there is a microtransaction store that heavily pushes these microtransactions. In fact, now they're bundling up the skins for sale. I don't know why they're doing that, but I don't buy the skins. I've only purchased one, but that's about it because it was supposed to be kind of rare to get in an AI battle. And so I was like, yeah, I think I want to buy it. So I went ahead and bought that skin. But that's about it for me. So I think a lot of gaming companies can start to reemphasize what it means to really make video games. I think they can start to look back and say what made video games good, what makes the community of gamers happy. Let's do those things. Let's make a video game and not bother about making microtransactions, but just worry more about the quality of the game. And there are people in the industry that are still doing this. They're making core games that don't need any extra in-game purchases, games that just work. I mean, right now everyone is anticipating Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding game because the game has no microtransactions. You can still be profitable by making games like this. God of War on PS4, a console exclusive, did not need any kind of in-game purchases to be successful. All it did was provide a very quality experience, a very good experience for all the people that were engaged in it. People bought PS4s for that game. Look at Spider-Man, Marvel's Spider-Man. This game did not need any in-game purchases, and critically was acclaimed to be one of the best superhero games that had been made in recent times. So anybody that wants to upsell its consumers is being very greedy. I think at this point, it's not a matter of if a game can thrive. It's a matter of how much more profits can we make. And if the gaming industry and the decision makers don't change their ways, they're going to end up selling their games at a discount to everybody that's willing to, even still buy the game. And that's what gamers are starting to do right now. They just wait a little bit, and then after a few weeks, the game, because it's not been accepted by the community, would then eventually be sold for a discount. And I think that's one of the downsides of making a video game that's based on just the in-game economy that is encouraging you to spend extra money versus just making the game to be a very good experience and making the game enjoyable for everybody. So that's pretty much what I wanted to put in this video today. I wanted to just put it out there that it's possible to take away microtransactions from a video game. A developer / publisher has actually achieved this before. And any gaming company that's talking about, well, we can't remove a microtransaction, element from our game is not digging deep to see exactly, what its customers want or what its community wants. They're giving excuses, and instead of doing the right thing, they can always fall flat on their faces, or they can do the right thing and win the hearts of their consumers and then allow their game to be supported for years down the road. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for your time and audience. Thank you for even paying attention and listening to this short editorial. I just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of the Gaming Daddy community. You guys are amazing, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. Peace.